Muted.
We're discussing about the class name, okay, or the constructor. So the name of the constructor, right? The constructor looks like this. So the constructor will be the name of the constructor, or constructor is similar to your name of the constructor will be like the name of your class and open and close parentheses. Okay, exactly. It should match the cases exactly. If this is your class, constructor will be okay. If A is your class, constructor will be okay. If B is your class, constructor will be. We will see why exactly we will use these constructors. Okay, we will see why exactly we will use these constructors. So similar to our methods, right? We can pass parameters to these constructors. Okay, we can pass parameters to these constructors. Okay, so if you don't have any parameters, that is called as your default constructor. That is called your default constructor. Okay, you can define within a class. You can define your own constructor. Okay, if you don't have any constructors defined in your class, Java will give you a default constructor. Okay, this is our default constructor, right? Constructor without any parameters are called as default constructors. Okay, so if you don't define any constructors, Java will give you a default constructor so that you can create an object of that particular class. So as to create an object of a particular class. Okay, so this defines your constructor. Okay, constructor defines what happens when an object of a class is created. Okay, this statement we will understand in a better way in later session. So while creating an object, okay, so we will take a simple example. Okay, while creating an object, how an object should be created. Okay, that is what it defines. Constructor, as the name suggests, constructor is nothing but the one which actually constructs your object. Okay, constructor is the one which actually constructs your object, and you can specify, or you can using parameter, constructor parameters, you can tell constructor while creating an object, like how the object should look. Okay, how the object should look. That is why the constructors are very important. Okay, so constructors define how an object should look, or how an object should be constructed, and when the object is constructed, how or when it is in the process of constructing, you can pass parameters to make it look like or make it make the object or create the object as per your requirements. Okay, as per your requirements. Okay, so for any class, constructors are very important. We can have Java define our constructors. So Java can define only default constructor for us, or we can explicitly define constructors as per our needs. Okay, we can define constructors explicitly as per our requirements. Okay, so if we have not created any constructor, Java creates one default constructor for us. So default constructor is nothing but a constructor without any parameters. Okay, without any parameters. Okay, let us see those examples. Okay, so in our let us not concentrate on this part as of now. Okay, let us not concentrate on this part as of now. Okay, so in our class book, we have not created any constructor. Okay, constructor looks like this. We will see the syntax how to define a constructor. Just to give you a brief idea, I will just mention like this. Okay, constructors look like this. Okay, so you have similar to the name. It should start with the name of class. So the cases should match. Okay, book means it should be book, and open and close parenthesis. Okay, I can have constructor default constructor like this. Okay, I can have another constructor with Okay. Okay, these are our instance variables. These two are our constructors. So you can have as many number of constructors as possible, but there are some restrictions. We will see what are those restrictions. Okay. So these two are our constructors. Let us not worry about this part of constructors. Let us concentrate only on default constructors. Okay. If we default constructor looks like this. Okay, it will not have any parameters, and we will see how these objects are initialized in a create an object. Okay. So let us remove this. So we have not, as of now, we have not defined any constructor. So Java has to provide a default constructor for us. Okay. So using that, we are creating objects of that particular class. Okay. Using default constructor provided by Java. Okay. Using default constructor. Okay. Using default constructor, we have created object. So who provided the default constructor? Java. Why? Because we have not defined any constructor as such as of now. Okay. So let us understand. So did everyone understand about constructors? So constructors are basically used for creating an object, and how, when the object is getting created, how an object has to be created. Okay, that you can define while using parameters of particular constructor. Okay, let us move on to the next slide. So we as of now we know that the new operator is used. Okay, for creating an object. Okay, new plus the constructor gives us the object. Okay, so let us see what are these methods. Okay, so during the initial when we started discussing about classes, we discussed like the classes will have data plus behavior, instance variables plus methods, right? So we know we understood about we understood little bit about instance variables. Now we'll see what are these methods. Okay, so Java gives a lot of power and the flexibility to these methods. Okay, so all these things like defining a class, what does the class define? Okay, what does the class define? So what are instance variables? What are instance variables? Okay, what are constructors? Okay, and what are methods? All these things are very, very, very important. Okay, so please try to practice these things with your own. How many classes you can write as many number of classes as possible, and you can experiment with whatever you think of. Okay, so the syntax for defining a method is, we will first define the type. Okay, type, this defines the type of the data returned by method. Okay, this defines the type of the data returned by this particular method. This is an identifier. This is an ID identifier for a method. This is an ID for a method. Okay, give me a second. Yeah, looks. Give me a second, Pawan. Pawan has a question. Okay, Pawan has some doubts. So let me finish this part. Okay, and then here we specify parameter list. Okay, parameter is nothing but some information if you want to pass to a particular method so that a method can operate on that information, okay, or data, and then return some value to result to that whoever is calling that method. Okay, this is nothing but a parameter list. What is this parameter list? It is nothing but your int A, int B. Okay, so it is your data type plus variable name, data type plus variable name separated by comma. It's a pair of type and variable name or identifier, type and identifier separated by comma. Okay, that's what we have mentioned here. Sequence of type and identifier pairs separated by comma. Okay, sequence of type and identifier plus identifier separated by comma. Okay, so if you want, say for example, you want to define something like void. Method name is anything you can give. Book method. Okay, this is the identifier. Void means this method does not return anything. So void means method does not return anything. Okay, so here you can specify whatever you want to specify, like if you want to pass integers, if you want to pass floats, if you want to pass objects itself. Okay, so we can specify whatever we want. Okay, so if you want to specify multiple parameters, type identifier id1 comma type id2 comma goes on. Okay, it goes on. So that is how you can define a method. That is how you can define a method. Okay, so this is a rule. Okay, if a method does not have any parameters, so it will be empty. If a method does not have any parameters, the parenthesis will be empty. Okay, the parenthesis, whatever you specify, parenthesis will be empty. Okay, and if a method is not returning anything, the return type should be. If a method is not returning anything, the return type should be void. It is a must. Okay, if a method is not returning anything, it should be, the return type should be void. Okay, and methods can, here the parameters are optional. As I mentioned, the parameters are optional. It depends, like whether you want to pass a parameter or if you, it depends on what exactly you want to do with the particular method. Okay, it depends on what exactly you do with the particular method. Based on that one, you pass parameters to that particular method. Okay, so as I mentioned, a method can return a value, or it need not have. I mean, it's not mandatory to return a value. It is optional. Okay, if it is returning any value, you should use the return statement. Okay, so the syntax for that one is return. Return is your keyword, and this is some value that you want to return from your method. Okay, if it is not returning any any value, you need not have to use this return. Even if you want to use, you can just use return. That's it. It should return to your this one. You will see what exactly. Okay, those things. So value is, it can be an expression which evaluates a particular value which is returned to the callee. Okay, or anything. If you want to return 10, 10 will be returned to the person who is calling this particular method. Okay, so important points are, we know how to define a method, and then you can pass parameters to a method. If a method does not take any parameters, the parenthesis will be empty. Okay, if a method does not return anything, the return type should be void. Okay, the return type should be void. It must be void if it is not returning anything. Okay, if it is returning something, you should, instead of void, you should specify the type. In type section, you should specify the type of the data returned by the particular method. Okay, let us take an example. We have a book class, right? That book class has two instance variables, book name and number of pages. Okay, let us define one particular method. Okay, so this particular method is get book name. Okay, get book name. So as we can see, the method name is get book name. Okay, here this is your access specifier. This is your access specifier, like we specified here. This is our access specifier for methods. Okay, and this is the return type of this method. That means get book name returns a string. That means get book name returns a string. Get book name returns a string. That is what this is doing using this particular return statement. Okay, we have seen three jump statements, right? One is break, second one is continue, and third one is return. Okay, in one of the previous classes we have seen that. So return statement is used to return a value or something to the person who is calling this method. Okay, so similar to that one, we have another method, which is, so this method, what does this method do? Can anyone tell just by looking at it, just by seeing at this, what does this method do? We will see what does this means here. Okay, what does this means here? It always refers to an object on which this particular method is called. Okay, we will see what exactly that means. Initially it might be a little confusing, but we will clarify those things. Okay, and then we have another method, get number of pages. Okay, this always refers to this one. Okay, this always refers to this one. Okay, so number of pages. So its return type is integer, which returns the number of pages. It is public, accessible to access specifier. Okay, so this is the name of the method. It does not take any parameters. Okay, but it returns an integer. So we have used return statement to specify that. Okay, let us move on to the next slide. So let us see what are these things. Okay, so the method that takes parameters. Okay, the method that takes parameters already. Yeah, Kavita is telling this means current. We will see that one, Kavita. Okay, we will see what exactly this means. Okay, this means current. Kavita is telling this means current. Okay, so I will give you a brief hint now. Okay, I'll tell you briefly what does this mean. Okay, so we have another two methods. Okay, we have another two methods. Here what we are doing, this method name is set book name, so it does not return anything, because that is why we have specified it as void. This also, it does not return anything, so we have specified it as void. So these two are access specifiers. Okay, name of the methods, this one and this one, but it takes a string as parameter. It takes a string as parameter. This is your type, this is your identifier. You can have any number of parameters here, int A, int B, based on our requirements. Okay, based on our requirements. So here we are passing integer as a parameter to this particular method. So what are we doing here? This always refers to this variable, this always refers to this variable. Okay, so this refers to this variable, this refers to this local variable. Okay, without this refers to the local variables. Okay, with this refers to the instance variables. Okay, let me do it again. This whole thing refers to instance variable. This refers to this instance variable. But without this, this refers to this local variable. Okay, let us move on to the next slide. So let us see a few examples. Okay, now what do I have now? Okay, let us define a couple of more. And see how we can use these things. Okay. We can all of you see this particular code. Can all of you see this code? Okay. Yeah, we will see all those things, Kavita. Okay. So we have two instance variables. Okay, and these four methods. Okay, two methods. They return. One returns string, one returns integer. These two methods does not return anything, but they take a parameter. Okay, so closely observe. Okay, closely observe the name of the methods. Okay, closely observe the name of the method. So book name, we have book name. Okay, so if you remove this get and make this be small letter, okay, that is your instance variable name. Okay, similarly, if you remove this get and make n as small lowercase, that becomes your second instance variable. Okay, these are called as getters. Okay, getters. Okay, what do this do? They return the value of instance variables. We will see the importance of these things as we go on. Okay, so I want you to understand this thing from the beginning itself. That's why I took this example. Okay, so these are called getters. Similarly, if you remove this and make it lowercase, okay, this is your instance variable. Remove this lowercase, this is your this one. So if you add get and variable name or instance variable name, okay, instance variable name. So make sure that it doesn't take any parameters. Okay, it just returns that particular instance variable. Okay, it just returns the particular instance variable. These are called getters. Your variable name, it does not take any parameters. Okay, these are setters. The return type is nothing. Okay, it doesn't return anything, but it takes a parameter. It takes a parameter of this particular type. Book name, set book name takes a parameter of string. Set number of pages takes integer parameter. Okay, like we have specified here. So let us see how to use these things. Okay, let us see how to use these things with an example. Then everything becomes easier. Okay, so now I have book test here. So what I am doing here, I have created two objects, my book and my book one. Okay, then what I am doing, I'm assigning. So that set parts are called as setters. Okay, the set parts are called as setters. Okay, getters and setters of a particular class. Getters and setters of a particular class. You can easily create. So if you have declared a particular this one, right? Say for example, instance variables, you can easily create setters and getters by going to right click, go to source or Control Shift S and generate getters and setters. Okay, already we have, that's why it says we already have getters and setters. So let us say float X. Okay, right click, Control Alt Shift S. Sorry, yeah, right click, source and generate getters and setters. Okay, it will ask, do you want to, it lists out, if you don't have any getters and setters, it lists out all the instance variables here. So only one instance variable X is does not have getters and setters, that's why it is displaying only X. Okay, you can select this and click OK. Automatically corresponding getters and setters will be generated. Okay, see these are the things. Okay, so we don't want that one as of now. Let us remove this particular part. Okay, so now here we have assigned values to instance variables for two objects. Okay, how can we get those get the values of individual objects? Say I will write print. Okay, first book name, first book number of first books, number of pages. Okay, second book name, second books, number of pages. Please let me know if it is bit confusing. Okay, please let me know if it is a bit confusing. Okay, otherwise I will not know whether like you are understanding or not. So we have used, so as we know, we can create n number of objects for a particular class, and each object will have its own copy of its instance variables as well as methods. Okay, so to access members of a particular object, we use, to access particular members of an object, we use dot operator. Okay, so say for example, this is my book. Okay, this book will have instance variable int number of pages and string book name. Along with this, it will have no, this is the first class I am telling about getters and setters. Okay, yeah, Uchana is asking whether this is the, I mean, did we discuss about getters and setters before? No, this is the first time we are discussing because we were discussing about methods, right? So that's why we are discussing about getters and setters. Okay, these things, getters and setters should not be too confusing. Okay, they are also methods. Okay, they are also methods, but they are used for specific purposes. Okay, to set a value of instance variables and to get a value of particular instance variables. We will see that one now. Okay. Yeah, we can, Kavita is telling we can use setters for book name and number of pages. Yes, Kavita. So this is okay. Well, I'll come to that one in a couple of minutes. Okay. So string we have, this is one thing, and then we have similar to this one, getters and setters. Okay. So this is for my book. Similarly, for my book one, one also, this will also have similar copy, similar to this one, but these two are different. Okay, this integer, this string, this method is different from whatever we have here. Okay, so in order to access, this integer, I will use dot operator. In order to access this string, I will use dot operator. Okay, in order to access this method, I will use dot operator. In order to access this setter, I will use dot operator. Okay, that is what I have done here. Okay, that is what I have done here to get the name of first book, to get the number of pages of first book, to get the number of name of book of second book, to get the number of pages of second book here. Okay, let us try to execute this. Let us try to execute this particular program. Okay. So we can see. So here we have not used. Okay. So this gives the name of this is our first book name, Java for Beginners, Learning Java. Okay. So if you are very much interested in learning advanced concepts or to learn Java very well, right? I would recommend one particular book. Okay. This is called as Thinking in Java by Bruce Eckel. Okay, this is Thinking in Java, one of the best books I have read about Java, but this is a bit advanced one. Okay, that book is a bit advanced one. After learning these basics, right, you can go for that book. You really enjoy that book. If you start understanding that concepts, right, whatever he has taught in that book, Bruce Eckel, so you'll really enjoy Java. Okay, so he has explained each and every concept very, very nicely. Okay, so but before going to that one, I would suggest you to have basic understanding of Java. That's what we are trying to do here. Okay, so with the I need to check, Kavita. So okay, I will. So whoever needs, so let me know. If I have a copy, I will send it to you. Okay, I think some old versions are available online. I think I've seen that. I haven't downloaded it, but it is available, I guess. You can download it. It is available for free, I guess. Okay, it is available for free, I guess. Okay, so with this, okay, so what I am doing here? I am calling. Okay, okay. So this method, this particular method, right? I am calling on this particular object. Okay, this particular method, I am calling on this particular object. This method, I am calling on this object. This method, I am calling on this object. Okay, so whenever I create an object, okay, whenever I create an object, each object will have its own copy of methods and instance variables. So these things I will tell multiple times because I want all of you to understand this very basic concept. Okay, and like why do we call instance variables as instance variables, and these methods are called as instance methods only. Okay, each individual instances or objects will have its own copy of these variables and methods. Okay, instance variables. Okay, and instance methods. Okay, so in order to access these things, we use dot operator. Okay, when we access particular method on a particular object, and we access particular method on a particular object, you are working on that particular, you are invoking the method or an instance variable of that particular object. Okay, this is very important. Okay, That is why I'm drawing and showing it with the, I'm showing this diagrammatically, okay? So when I say my book 1, okay, this will have book name as Learning Java and number of pages is equal to 200, okay? And what are we doing? And what are we doing? So we are referring to one particular object of instance variable of that particular object. Instance variable of that particular object. That is what this particular this means. Okay. This means, okay, let us not get confused too much with this. So whenever we call, I'll discuss about that this part after probably next class. Okay. So just for our reference, this always refers to the object on which you are invoking a method. Okay, this always refers to an object. Okay, this always refers to an object. You will see there are different ways of using this. Okay, there are different ways, different uses of. I mean, in different contexts, you can use this. Okay, for example, this you can use like this. It refers to something. Just you can use this dot get object also. That also, I mean, any method also you can call. Okay, all those things we will discuss. Okay, so that's what the main intention of this one is. Each object will have its own copy of methods and variables. Okay, on that method and variable, we are invoking, I mean, object, we are invoking those variables and instance methods. Okay, so let us see. Say here, what did we do? We assign values to these variables, instance variables, right? Using assignment operator. Okay, assume like Kavita told. So what we can do is we can use these setters. Okay, we can use these setters to assign those values. We can use these setters to assign the values. Okay, why? Because it is taking a string. We can give any name to this string that is assigned to the object of or instance variable of that particular object. Let us see an example. Okay, so this is the previous result before assigning through setters. Okay, now what we can do? My book dot set book name. You can give any book name. Okay, just excuse me. I'm just giving. Okay, this is one book. So the name of my book's object's book name is Vikram's Java book. My book 1 dot set book name. Remember, we are using methods. Okay, we are not using assignment operators. Okay. Okay, this is, we have set the name of my book as Vikram's Java book. Name of book name of my book 1 object is Yuvraj's Java book. Okay, so now similarly what I can do, my book dot set number of not dot set number of pages for that is integer 300. Okay, my book 1 dot set number of pages 500. Okay, so what did we do? We have assigned, or we have yeah, it is assignment only. So we have set the values of instance variables book name and the number of pages using setter methods. Okay, usually we call it as setters. We don't call it as setter methods. Okay, so we have used methods to assign values to those instance variables. Okay, let us try to print those values. Okay, let us try to print those values after we assigned the values using setters. Okay, so now you can see first book's name is Vikram's Java book. Second book's name is Eva's Java book. Number of pages is 300. Number of pages is 500. Okay. So why do we use this one? Why do we use this one? So when we started discussing about instance variables and methods, we told like the methods act on instance variables, right? Methods act on instance variables or methods act on data. Okay. So what happens if I make these instance variables as private? Okay, instance variables as private. These instance variables are just private. They are not accessible by any other code apart from the code from this within this class. Okay, these are all the codes or code of this particular class, right? So then what happens? This particular piece of code starts showing errors. Okay, this particular piece of code starts showing errors. Why? Because these are limited or these are restricted only within this scope, this method scope, class scope. Okay, so this is the ideal way of writing your instance variables. You should not give access to instance variables outside of a particular class. There are situations where you need to expose your data part, but ideally we should make all your data part as private. Okay, data part, all the data should be accessed and modified only through the methods within that particular class. Okay, you have to go through the data. You have to go through the data of a particular class. Okay. What I mean is, these are instance variables, right? These instance variables should be accessible only through the methods within this particular class. Okay, it should not be accessed by code, any code other than the code within this particular class. That is why when you make it as private, we cannot access this outside of this particular class. That is why we have these setters and getters. Okay, what are we doing? In order to access the value of a particular object of instance variables, we have to go through these methods. To get a value of a book name for a particular object, we have to use get book name. Okay, in order to get the number of pages, we have to use get number of pages. Okay, similarly, in order to set the value, we have to use set book name and set number of pages. Set number of pages or set book name. Okay, so what are we trying to do? Either to set a value, we are using setters, and to get a value, we are using getters. Okay, that is how you expose your data. You have to make your data private. Okay, you have to make your data private. Okay, you have to make your data private and allow others to access this data through methods. Okay, we will see why all those concepts are there in our later sessions. As of now, just remember this particular concept, that is, make all your instance variables private. Okay, instance variables private, and public methods to either get or set value of those instance variables. Okay, you should never allow this kind of code in your code. You should never allow your code to behave like this. So let us comment this part. This is a bad coding practice. Okay, this is a bad coding practice. So we have set and we have set the values here, and here, and we got those values here. So this is how you should provide access to your instance variables. But there are some specific scenarios where you have to expose your data, but not to everyone, to limited one. We will see those scenarios. Okay, so let us stop our discussion here. I would like to I'll give 5 minutes. Okay, if anyone has any doubts, we will discuss the doubt for 5 minutes, and then we will conclude this session. Okay, so anyone has any doubts regarding the topics that we have discussed so far, please let me know. Raise your hand. I will raise your hand. I will try to answer your doubt. Okay. Okay. No one has any doubts? Okay. Safia has doubt. Yeah, Safia, you can ask your doubt.
Yeah, what's the benefit to declare private?
No, I could not hear you. So what you are asking is why we made those instance variables as private, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's what the this is one. Like there are in object-oriented programming, right? There are some basic concepts like encapsulation, polymorphism, and inheritance. Okay. So data should be encapsulated. So one way of encapsulation, if you have attended the previous classes or if you have seen previous recordings, right? We have seen like any block of code. So, okay. So for example, so anything between these, right? This curly braces or flag brackets, okay? Any code, yeah, okay, any block, this is called as block, open and close curly braces or flag brackets, right? This is a block, it defines the scope, okay? That is your, that actually is a basic thing for defining a particular, or encapsulating your data, okay? Encapsulating your data. So data should always be hidden from accessing, it should be hidden from outside world. It should always be hidden from outside world. Nobody should access data directly. Okay, nobody should. We should never give access to the data inside a particular class outside of this particular class. So whatever the code that you see inside this class belongs to this particular class. Okay, so as part of your encapsulation rule, right? Encapsulation principle. We should never allow anyone to access this data. Okay, so why do we need? A simple thing is, say for example, if we give access to like this, okay, like this, we can manipulate like this, right? Say for example, someone else is trying to, your program is running, okay, your Java program is running, this particular program is running, okay, you are assigning these values here. You're assigning these values, Java for beginners 100, learning Java 200. Assume that somebody else has access to this particular values and changes the values. By the time you, there are something called as threads, okay? There are something called as threads. Assume that some other thread runs, okay? And then the values of these variables are changed by that particular person. Okay, exactly. Satya is telling data privacy. Exactly, that is data. That is called as the data privacy. Okay, but what I'm trying to explain here is layman's language. Okay, so somebody else will try to assign values to these things, and by the time you print those values here, right, the values whatever you would have assigned here might have changed. and will not have any clues. Okay, so that is where we hide this particular instance variable from outside world by making it as private. That is what is called as data privacy. What do you mean by generalizing as well, Sophia? What do you mean by generalizing here? Instance variables. By making private, what are you generalizing? Generalizing. You can speak, Sophia.
Yeah, means you can access different data.
No, generalizing means different data, is it? I did not understand. Okay, we'll discuss that later, Sophia. If you have any doubts regarding that one, please let me. I will send an email to intuition.javatraining@gmail.com. Okay. Okay. If anyone has any questions or doubts, please send an email to this particular email ID. I will respond to you. Okay. So let us stop this session at this point. So we'll continue tomorrow at 8:30 p.m. CT. Okay. Yeah. Thanks everyone. Thanks for attending the session. Have a great evening. Enjoy your evening. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Tina. Yeah, thanks everyone. Thanks, Roman.